Hello, this is Annette with Project Refine Life. Welcome to my channel. This is Standout Decks of 2023, which is a VR to Juli, Heather, and Sarah over at 3 Girls, 1 Deck. Now, I could not decide how I really wanted to structure this video because they were kind of stating that, you know, take it any way you want it. It could be your 5 most used, your 5 decks of 2023. So what I thought I would do is I would feature the decks that are all new to my collection in 2023, but I'm going to break it up. So the first 5 are the newly released decks of 2023 that are new to my collection and really stood out. And I'm sharing these in the order in which I received them throughout the year. So this is the Midnight Magic deck, a tarot deck of mushrooms by Sarah Richard. This deck is beautiful. It is amazing. I love the guidebook. I love the images. The cardstock is a little rough. It's a little tough. It's not very bendable. So if you riffle shuffle, you might have a hard time with this deck. I don't know, maybe it loosens it up, but I'm not a great riffle shuffler. So that's not something that I normally do. But I love the black backgrounds within the deck, plus the beautiful images, and it almost seems luminous within the way that these images show up. You have this beautiful midnight magic or this nighttime view of these beautiful fungi, and you would think, well, how is a mushroom deck going to really talk to me as far as tarot is concerned? But the creator did an amazing job relating the use or the healing properties, the magical properties of the mushrooms to the archetypal energy of the tarot. It is a beautiful, wonderful deck. It's a mass market deck, and I just love it. The next deck that was released in 2023 and new to my collection in 2023, which really stood out to me, was the Be With Your Body Tarot. This deck, I saw it first on Instagram, and I don't even know how I got recommended or how this even popped up in my feed on Instagram, because I wasn't familiar with these creators, and it is just wonderful. I really enjoy this deck. It is created by Sarah Jane Chapman with illustrations by Sarah Stressy. I hope that I remember to mention all of them because I'm kind of bad about that. Anywho, I love the way that this deck, especially maybe it's me being a yoga teacher, but I love the way that this deck attaches the energy of the suits to body parts. So your eyes are swords, your hands are your wands, your hips are your cups, and then your feet are your pentacles. And it is somewhat pip style. However, I really love the attachment of the body parts and how that works for working with or supporting that type of energy within the tarot, and how you can relate it to yourself, to your body, to being within your body, to body acceptance. It is a beautifully, beautifully created deck. The deck itself, the card itself, they are a nice quality. You know, most people might like something that is maybe a little bit thinner, but it's a beautiful quality deck. It has this beautiful gold edging. These are the backs. I just love it. And I love that she attached the floral and the plant energy in here as well. And all of this is mentioned within the guidebook. It's a very simple guidebook, but it is great at getting the point across when it comes to combining these energies and how it works within the tarot. She has an astrological reference, a planet, and any other cards that that particular card is associated to or connected to within the tarot, and a really nice explanation within the guidebook itself. This has been an amazing addition to my collection this year. I really like this, and I just don't think that it gets enough play here on TarotTube. I don't know if many people are attracted to this deck, but it is beautiful for really being within your body. The next deck is the Little Sister Tarot, written and illustrated by Ginny Thornton. This is such a beautifully illustrated deck. The colors within this are soft and soothing, yet they do have a vibrance to them, and it feels very earthy when working with this deck. One of the things about this deck is it is written by the little sister. She is a little sister of 2 older siblings, and talking about grief over losing her siblings. And I am the little sister, so that in itself was kind of like an attachment to the deck before I even got it. But this deck is beautiful. It has a wonderful, wonderful voice in the way that it speaks to you, in the way that it helps you with working through life and grief and beauty. And it is wonderfully, wonderfully illustrated. It has a very, like this touch to me that really felt like she had a connection with Latin America or with Mexico. And I actually reached out to the creator and I asked her, hey, are you Latina or what, or Latino? You know, what is the deal here? I feel a connection. And she stated that she spent a lot of time in Mexico, and I can feel that influence within the colors and within some of the art. But it is a beautiful deck, and the guidebook is wonderfully written, and you have full color images within the guidebook. The way that that's written is very nice, and the card quality is like a soft matte, almost like a rose petal, but very soft and easy to shuffle. Beautiful deck. Look at that beautiful edging within that deck. And then the backs are beautiful. It has these glyphs on the back. Great addition to my collection this year. The next deck is the Goddess of Love Tarot. And this is a book and deck for embodying the erotic, divine, feminine. I love this deck. I realized after doing a VR that I needed a deck like this within my collection. I did not have anything directly connected to the erotic or the sensual part of dealing with self in my collection. And this deck, being that is a collage deck for one, I love collage art. The colors within it, I love that it focuses on the pink and the red. It is very clear as to what kind of work you're going to be doing just by looking at the color scheme within the overall sense of the deck. It is beautiful. This really connects you with your sensuality and with working with it, and the images within the guidebook. And I love the way that she just seamlessly put these collages together. It is absolutely stunning. Card quality, you know, it lacks a little bit in card quality, but this is such a reasonably priced deck that I cannot complain. And I will be getting a second copy of this deck because this is one of those decks that I want to make sure I always have within my collection. I love this deck. The guidebook, you guys, the guidebook is amazing, simply amazing. If you need that connection to that part of yourself, if you need a deck like that, this deck cannot be beat. It is beautiful. The last deck, released in 2023, that is also new to my collection in 2023, is a Circle of Doors Tarot. I haven't had this deck for that long, and because of that, that's why it's not showing up in my most used, because I've had trouble putting this deck down, and this has earned a spot on my shelf right here on my desk, one of those decks that I reach for. And because I'm doing some other type of work in the month of December, I've had to like put a stop, like, okay, cool it. Like, you can draw it later, but for those deeper readings, you need to reach for this because this is not the type of work that you're doing with it. But I can see how this would lend themselves into it. I'm just trying to utilize some other very specific decks within my collection. But this deck, oh my God, it is amazing. The card quality, the cards are a little bit bigger than your average tarot size deck, but the card quality is amazing. I love the very beautiful and tastefully done foiling that's included within the cards themselves and on the back of the cards. The multi-level photography which is included, which you can absolutely get lost in. In my walkthrough, I mentioned how I pulled out a magnifying glass and was just looking at every single section. And then I've noticed that when I take a copy of these to include in my journal, that I can see other things that even the eye can't pick up on, which is amazing. It is just a beautiful, beautiful deck. And then to top it all off, the guidebook is out of this world. Kasha over at Tarot Map had the creators on, and I was lucky enough. I was like, I think leaving one yoga class and coming home for a little bit. So I was able to log on and ask some questions, but this guidebook is amazing. The guy that wrote the guidebook is Brian Duffy. It was created by Anna Stavely and Jill Sutherland. Everything fits within this box. The box is beautiful. The images are beautiful. And some people have said, like, even though that it's black and white, it feels like color. And I get it. It does. It feels so vibrant, so alive. This deck is a living, breathing deck. Next are the 5 decks that are new to my collection in 2023, but not newly released. And this is the Tarot of the Drowning World. This is such an amazingly beautiful deck. I just am overwhelmed when I look at these pictures. They call you in to these images, trying to figure out what the heck it is that you're looking at and how does it kind of pull you in and associate the meanings to the tarot. But as you begin to work with this deck, you get it, you understand, and you're called into it and you're feeling it. And it's such an emotional deck because everything is placed within water and working together in that sense. It is just stunning. This deck has really stood out for me within this year and earned one of the coveted spots of the decks that remain on my desk. I have this one within arm's reach because it has really made an impact for me. Such a beautifully created deck. And the guidebook explains everything that you need to understand about this deck. The way that it's written, the descriptions are short, but they're so meaningful within that short little description. Beautifully, beautifully created. The card quality is amazing. They are a little bit longer than your average size tarot deck, but what a beautiful deck. The Forager's Daughter Tarot. This is the Afterlight edition. I never got the first edition, and I looked at this thing for so long. I really liked it, but I thought that I didn't need another animal deck within my collection. I really love animal decks, so I don't know why I was fighting myself so hard to get this deck, but the beauty within the flora and the fauna are just amazing. Amazing illustrations. And the guidebook, oh my goodness, this is like a proper guidebook, like a proper book. I love the way that she writes. What an amazingly talented soul. I am, and I always talk about this, I'm in her Patreon, which is $3 a month. She gives you a new moon, a full moon. She does a deep dive, and she does try to cover a lot of the Will of the Year celebrations, if she can get to it. The book, or the box rather, is very well done as well. You have this little ribbon, you can pull it out. what a beautiful deck. And this really has tied into, and I don't know if it's because of the Patreon or not, but I've used this on several occasions for my full moon readings. Maybe it's the light within it, the way that it shines within the deck, and the idea of that illumination within the moon. I don't know what it is, but this is another deck that has actually earned its spot right on my desk. So it is never far from me. I really love this deck. Another of my most used decks comes in with the Be With Your Body Tarot as well. This deck has, and I mentioned this as new to my collection in 2023, released in 2023, but again, one of the decks that I use the most within this year, and maybe because I use it for a lot of my yoga type inspiration, or, you know, to tap into what the overall energy is within my classes. But this deck has been used a lot within this year. So one of these decks too that I just am so grateful to be able to have had the opportunity to bring into my collection. This deck here, Earth Magic. I believe this came out in 2022, and I got it in early 2023. This is by Daniel Martin Diaz. He is a local here in Arizona. He lives in Tucson. I cannot believe how beautiful he draws. These are hand drawings. These are beautifully created illustrations. And I love the hermetic principles within this deck, and I love the little glyphs here on the top of the deck, which represent the elemental energy. But also there is somewhat of a little tie into, I feel, like my culture, because Daniel and I share the same culture, and I did have a conversation with him on the phone at one point, and a delightful conversation, and we have a lot in common. So this is a beautiful deck. What a wonderful deck. And then the card quality is very similar to Pagan Otherworlds, but it is, to me, less slippery than that deck. And one of my most used decks, it stays within arm's reach of me, because when I need something to read quickly in a Rider-Waite-Smith type style, then I know that I can pull this deck and it provides what I need. The deck that came in and was used the most in 2023, not necessarily created in 2023, but came into my collection, and this is the deck that, as I go through my journals, this is the deck that I used the most. This deck. This is the Narrative Alchemy Tarot by Chrissy Bentley. This deck is amazing. This deck steps in for me when I need a tarot. This deck steps in when I need an oracle. This deck steps in for me when I need to work with chakras for myself, for others. If I have a deck that's hard to pair, because I always use an oracle and a tarot deck. Very, very seldom do I use two tarot decks together. It's just not the way that I read. I like to have like this focused energy that the oracle kind of guides me or finishes up, but mostly to guide me through the reading. And then the tarot deck kind of tells me how to work with that, how to use that energy, or what to release from that. And this deck, with its keywords right at the top, and then your association to the tarot right at the bottom, can step into either role as an oracle or as a tarot. And then if I need just one word to kind of wrap up my reading, this deck steps in and does that too. It is so functional within my collection. I cannot believe how beautifully this deck has really filled a void within my collection. And I really didn't understand how important it would become when I ordered it, but wow, what an amazing deck. So that's it, guys. Those are my standout decks within the collection, broken up into 2 separate categories. So thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you so much. From my heart to yours, I will see you later.